Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most epic stories ever told. It's got drama, it's got betrayal, it's got a superhero-level strongman, but it's also a profound lesson about our own lives. I'm talking about the story of Samson and Delilah. Now, you might think you know this story. Strong guy, manipulative woman, haircut gone wrong. But what if I told you Delilah wasn't the real reason for Samson's downfall? What if the true villain was someone Samson saw in the mirror every single day? This story isn't just an ancient legend. It's a mirror for our modern struggles. It's a warning, but more importantly, it's a comeback story. So stick with me, because we're going to uncover how the strongest man who ever lived became weak, and how even in his lowest moment, he found his greatest purpose. Let's start from the beginning. Who was Samson? The book of Judges tells us he was a miracle child, dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. This meant he had a special vow: no cutting his hair, no touching dead bodies, and no drinking wine. In return, God gave him supernatural strength. We're talking about a guy who tore a lion apart with his bare hands, as it says in Judges 14:6. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands as he might have torn a young goat. He also killed 1,000 men with nothing but the jawbone of a donkey. This guy was a legend, a one-man army meant to deliver Israel from their enemies, the Philistines. But here's the first crack in the armor. Despite his incredible physical strength, Samson had a crippling weakness: his choices in relationships. He repeatedly fell for women who were not on his side. His first wife was a Philistine woman who manipulated him to get the answer to his riddle. It was a clear red flag, a sign that his desires were leading him into dangerous territory. And this is where we need to pause and look at our own lives. How often do we ignore red flags in people or situations simply because we want something? We see the warning signs, the lies, the manipulation, the disrespect, but we push them aside. Samson's story screams at us from across the centuries. Toxic people can only have power over you if you give it to them. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Samson had the strength to fight armies, but he failed to guard his own heart. His pattern of self-sabotage continues and eventually leads him to the Valley of Sorek and to a woman named Delilah. The Bible tells us the Philistine rulers went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him." They offered her a fortune, and she agreed. This wasn't a subtle betrayal. Delilah asked him point blank, 3 separate times, for the secret to his strength so he could be subdued. 3 times. First, he tells her to tie him with 7 fresh bowstrings. She does. The Philistines are waiting, but he snaps them as a string of tow snaps when it comes close to the fire. Red flag number 1. Then he tells her to tie him with new ropes. Again, she does. The Philistines are there, and he snaps them off his arms as if they were threads. Red flag number 2. Then he tells her to weave the 7 braids of his hair into a loom. She does, and he pulls the whole loom and its pin out of the ground. Red flag number 3. After 3 failed attempts and 3 blatant betrayals, what does Delilah do? She plays the victim. Judges 16:15 says, "Then she said to him, 'How can you say, I love you, when you won't confide in me? This is the 3rd time you have made a fool of me, and haven't told me the secret of your great strength.'" She nagged and prodded him day after day until he was tired to death. And here's the tragic moment. Samson gives in. He tells her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, "because I have been a Nazirite, dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." Why? Why would he do this? Because Samson's problem wasn't Delilah. His problem was his own lack of discipline. his spiritual apathy, and his pride. He had played with fire so many times and gotten away with it that he thought he was untouchable. He took God's gift for granted. His weakness for women was more dangerous than any Philistine army. He forgot that the source of his strength wasn't his long hair. The hair was just the outward symbol of his covenant with God. By telling Delilah, he wasn't just giving away a secret. He was betraying his sacred vow. He was choosing his own desires over his divine purpose. So, while he slept, a man came and shaved his head. Delilah called out, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He woke up and thought, "I'll go out as before and shake myself free." But here are some of the saddest words in the Bible. He did not know that the Lord had left him. In that moment, everything changed. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. The man who could see danger from a mile away was now blind. The man who could break any chains was now bound in bronze shackles, forced to grind grain in a prison. He hit rock bottom, humiliated, blinded, powerless. A public spectacle for the very enemies he was meant to defeat. Imagine the despair. Imagine the regret. This is the part of the story where many of us might give up. We mess up, we fall hard, and we think it's over. We think our mistakes had disqualified us from our purpose. But this is where the comeback begins. Because even in that dark, miserable prison, something started to happen. Judges 16:22 says, "The hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved." This isn't just about hair. It's a symbol of hope. It's a sign that a new chapter was beginning. In his blindness and brokenness, Samson finally began to see. He had nothing left but God. No strength, no status, no pride. And in that emptiness, he reconnected with the true source of his power. The Philistines decided to have a massive party to celebrate their victory. They brought Samson out to entertain the crowds, mocking the man who once terrorized them. Thousands of people were on the roof and in the temple, celebrating their god Dagon for delivering Samson into their hands. Samson, now blind and humbled, asked the servant leading him to let him feel the pillars that supported the temple. And then he prayed a final prayer. It wasn't a prayer of arrogance. It was a prayer of desperation and purpose. He said, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." This wasn't just about revenge. It was about fulfilling his life's mission. It was about taking down the enemies of his people and bringing glory to God, even at the cost of his own life. He pushed with all his might, and the temple collapsed, killing more people in his death than he had in his entire life. His final act became his greatest victory. So what does this mean for us? It means that your story isn't over just because you've fallen. It doesn't matter how badly you've messed up, how far you've strayed, or how broken you feel. Your weakness is not your disqualification. It's an invitation for God's strength to show up. As the Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12-9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." God can still use broken people for powerful purposes. In fact, sometimes our greatest impact comes not from our strength, but from what we learn in our weakness. Samson's story is a powerful reminder that even if you've hit rock bottom, your final chapter can still be your strongest. His life warns us to guard our hearts, to recognize our weaknesses, and to never take God's gifts for granted. But his death shows us the incredible power of redemption. Maybe you feel like you're in that prison right now. Maybe you're blinded by regret and chained by your past mistakes. Remember this: your hair can grow back. It's never too late to turn back to the source of your strength. It's never too late for your comeback story to begin. Your greatest victory might still be ahead of you. Thanks so much for watching. And share in the comments, what is one lesson from Samson's life that you can apply to your own? I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.